Good evening, and congratulations to all of tonight's winners, particularly Raf. Thank you. Scully, Gowdy, Whitaker, McKay, Enberg, Summerall, and Jackson, the true sports broadcasting legends whose legacies coincide with the rise of sports television in this country. And another name deserves its rightful place among these giants in the industry, Lundquist. Broadcasters are fortunate if they have one or two defining moments by which they will always be remembered. Well, Verne Lundquist has numerous and instantaneously recognizable ones that remain some of the most iconic calls in sports television history. There's the pass to Leitner, puts it up, yes, maybe, yes, sir. In your life, have you seen anything like that? Touchdown Auburn, an answered prayer. How Verne has been able to perfectly capture these scenes with just a few words is truly remarkable, to say the least. And when you hear those phrases, you instantaneously remember the moment and exactly where you were when you first heard them, and that is such a rarity in today's business. Verne, there are a few people who remember specifically where they were when some of your calls.
Hey Verne, congrats on the Sports Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award. It's been great having you call the SEC games for all these years, and it was especially great having you on the call for the 2013 Iron Bowl when you delivered another one of your memorable lines. Touchdown Auburn, an answered prayer. Hope you enjoy the evening.
Hey Verne, congratulations on this award, a Lifetime Achievement Award. To do what you have done and to have experienced some of the greatest moments in sports history, but also they were great sporting moments in sporting history, but you made them the most special moments in sporting history with your calls. And I'm thankful to have been part of it. This is all about you, and I'm just so thankful to have been a small part of your illustrious career.
Hey, my friend, I understand you're getting a Lifetime Emmy Award. Verne, you've been a great friend to a lot of us for a lot of years. You've done a great job. I'm proud that maybe I had a little bit to do with what that award was. And so congratulations and yes, sir.
Pretty special. Longevity does not automatically qualify you as a true legend, but it is certainly one necessary element. Verne is currently in his 53rd year as a broadcaster. He has covered the Masters for 31 years, the NCAA basketball championship for 32 years, and college football since 1974, and I could go on and on. He has covered over 20 different sports for CBS, including figure skating in the Olympics, and oh yes, the Tanya Harding-Nancy Kerrigan saga. He has called the NBA and numerous Super Bowls on radio. And when Jackie Smith of the Dallas Cowboys dropped that famous wide-open pass in the end zone in Super Bowl 13, Verne again illustrated not only his ability as a wordsmith, but also his humanity when he said simply of Smith, "Oh, bless his heart, he's got to be the sickest man in America." Just amazing how Verne does that time and time again. So we know that Verne has consistently been at the top of his game for 5 decades, and we all know that his marvelous voice is instantaneously recognizable. But what is not as widely known is just what an outstanding teammate, friend, and husband he is also. He is the consummate gentleman in every sense of the word and treats the broadcast associates exactly the same as he does the chairman, always with a welcoming smile, always with great stories, and always with the genuineness and warmth not often seen in our business. Sitting around the trucks at a remote, there is no more enjoyable time you can spend than listening to Verne tell his stories about the early days of sports television, the Masters, the Olympics, the Super Bowl, the NBA, SEC football, or his work in the very early days of sports television on such esteemed show as Bowling for Dollars. Yes, you heard correctly, Bowling for Dollars, which Verne did in the early 1970s in Dallas. I'm telling you, there is nothing better than listening to Verne telling these stories. Verne is also a wonderful, wonderful teammate, both personally and professionally, always making sure his analyst in the booth is the star of the show and never himself. Just ask Bill Raftery, Gary Danielson, Scott Hamilton, Dan Fouts, Terry Bradshaw, or John Madden what kind of teammate Verne is, and you will get the same answer every single time. No one is as unselfish or accommodating as Verne. He simply makes every analyst with whom he works so much better, never looking for the spotlight to shine on him. As a husband, Verne is totally devoted to Nancy, who is by his side constantly on the road, even spotting for him in the early days of SEC football. If you've had the opportunity to see how Verne looks at Nancy, you know that there is no more caring and devoted husband than he is. I had a tough phone call to make over the Christmas holidays in 1999 when I told Verne that we were having him do the SEC football package and not the NFL. News that at the time was not very welcome in the Lundquist household. But Verne, as disappointed as he was, made the SEC on CBS his very own, was instrumental in helping to make it the highest-rated college football package in America, and carved out a niche for himself that, as he will tell you, has been one of the highlights of his entire career. Verne and Gary on a Saturday afternoon from Tuscaloosa or Gainesville or Athens or Baton Rouge. Is there anything better on television than that? I do not think so. What Keith Jackson was for so many years has been inherited by Verne, and he has carried on that legacy and tradition in the most amazing and lasting way. So when Verne asked me to make this introduction tonight, I was honored beyond belief. It's an easy introduction to make since there are so many great moments in his career to talk about. But it's also a little challenging since there have been so many wonderful things said about Verne throughout his entire career. So let me just conclude by saying that around CBS, we sometimes refer to him as Uncle Verne because in so many ways, he is just like your favorite uncle. But that belies the fact that he is one of the very best in the history of the industry. And he's done it with class, kindness, dignity, humility, and a remarkable sense of talent for saying just the exact right thing at the exact right moment. You know, people used to say about my dad that there will never be another Jim McKay, and they were right. There is also no question that there will never, ever be another Verne Lundquist. And those of us who have been lucky enough to know him, to work with him, or to simply listen to him have been very, very lucky indeed. Thank you, Verne.
Verne Lundquist, a man of the hour. We feel very comfortable having Verne Lundquist in our homes.
And I'm the veteran of the bunch, Verne Lundquist for Channel 8 Sports.
And having had that gift for so many years.
White's Bowling for Dollars.
There's a warmth about Verne that just absolutely cuts through. And it's not something that he turns a switch and becomes suddenly a nice guy on television. You can tell right away. When you just hear his voice, he's a nice man. He's a good person. And he's someone you trust.
I'm Verne Lundquist, and welcome to this majestic...
First of all, his name's Verne. I mean, his name's Verne.
His name is not really Verne if you don't know it. It is Merton Laverne Lundquist Jr. I call him Vernsky.
He's just loved because people know that what you get on TV is what you get when you meet him out at a restaurant.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, no.
When you hear his voice, you connect right away.
1, 2, 3.
He just owns wherever he goes. He enjoys wherever he goes.
He's friendly, has that belly laugh.
That laugh comes out, doesn't it? I mean, it comes out often.
When you hear Verne Lundquist's laugh, it just makes you feel better.
The Auburn thing last year, I heard that a few times.
It wasn't quite your answered prayer. No.
Verne has captured some of the most significant moments in the last half century, really, of all sport.
When it comes down to crunch time, you know, that's the moment that all of us play-by-play guys live for. And I don't know anybody who does it better than Verne, even to this day.
There are so many memorable moments that Verne has been a part of, whether it be basketball, football, golf. there's a signature to it.
Maybe. Yes, sir!
I think he owns those two words. It's not just the two words, yes, sir. It was the timing. We still had 18 to play, but you knew that Jack was going to put that green jacket on when Verne Lundquist announced.
Yes, sir!
Verne just has this knack for the perfect line
There's the pass to Leitner.
at the perfect time.
Puts it up. Yes!
Puts it up. Yes! Perfect call.
Tiger Woods chip in, one of the all-time great calls in all of sports, never mind golf.
Well, here it comes.
Verne again with his succinct style,
Oh, my goodness.
sparingly calling it as the ball was rolling to the cup. Paused,
Oh, wow!
and then it dropped.
In your life have you seen anything like that?
How could you ever come up with a better line than that? I mean, I think that of all the many wonderful moments for Verne, that to me was the greatest of them all.
You're with him at every step of that ball taking a revolution. That's the mark of a great play-by-play announcer.
We all knew that we were in the middle of something that nobody had ever seen before.
On the way.
You know what I like about the call? It doesn't overshadow the play.
Davis has another block.
As it's happening,
Chris Davis.
he's talking in amazement.
No flags.
There's nothing forced.
Touchdown. Auburn. An answered prayer.
If you think about all of Verne's great calls, it's just genuineness.
I have heard the iron ball call, and even though it's one I would like to forget, pretty unique.
By George, the dream is alive.
He's the best. The joy that he has calling a sporting event, it comes through. You hear it right through your speaker.
He's someone that may be coming into your house through a television set, but it feels more like he's sitting in the room with you.
He is who you think he is. He's not playing the part of Verne Lundquist.
Yes, sir.
That's actually who he is.
He's easy to mesh with.
All year, Alabama has only had 5 runs.
Verne encourages you to join him in the conversation.
That's a poor punt.
That qualifies for poor.
I'm a master of adjectives.
That's a perfect one right there.
It's kind of like Dancing with Fred Astaire.
He's everything that I hope to be someday in this business. I don't know anybody who's done it with more class, who's done it showing more versatility, who's done it showing more humor, more grace.
And that's real. You can't manipulate that. It's not contrived. That's coming from his heart. And that's something to learn from as a young broadcaster.
How about that?
Verne, before you give your remarks, there are a few people who have flown in to spend some time with you tonight. First of all, your current partner on the SEC, Gary Danielson. Your longtime NCAA basketball partner, Bill Raftery. From your NFL days, Dan Fouts. And representing your days in Dallas, Calvin Hill. The inscription on the Lifetime Achievement Emmy says, "From the verdant fairways of Augusta National to the roaring crowds of college football stadiums across the country, for over 5 decades, his unique voice has called each event with unrivaled knowledge and insight." Presented by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences on May 10th, 2016, Mr. Verne Lundquist.
Wow. Notice I had a premature acceptance walk. Sean said, "You're not supposed to be out here yet." Thank you, Sean, for the warmth of that introduction. Thank you, guys. You don't want to stand here for the next 10 minutes, so thanks. Oh my God. Now I feel like I'm part of the Vienna Boys Choir. If you don't mind, I will share with you an introduction I received quite a few years ago. I was lucky enough to become the Sportscaster of the Year for the state of Texas. And the award ceremony was held in Salisbury, North Carolina, small city outside of Charlotte. And went back, and the event was held at Catawba College. And the idea was the 50 state winners lined up alphabetically. The process was we would be introduced, go out, accept the award from the Master of Ceremonies, exit stage right. So we were lined up, and I was back in the back between John Ward of Tennessee and Dave Blackwell from Utah. And the MC that night was a young man in his, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s. Turned out he was the public address announcer at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Well, he was really nervous about this thing, and about 20 minutes before we began, he came back to me and he said, "I don't know why, I'm really struggling with your name. It's Van Lundquist?" I said, no, it's Verne Lundquist. He said, "Okay, I'll be back, I'll get it right." Now he comes back 2 minutes before the program begins. He said, "Vin Lundquist." I said, "No, Verne Lundquist." He said, "I'll nail it when it's time." Now the process begins. Across we go. He gets John Ward of Tennessee. John walks out. Now he looks at me, and the flop sweat begins. There's perspiration down his cheeks, and he looked at me with a steely eye. He swallowed hard, and he said, "Now from the state of Texas, WFAA-TV, here is Verne Ludicrous." Joe Buck's dad was there representing Missouri, and as I walked the stage, I heard him say "ludicrous." And Jack Buck never called me anything but that for the rest of his life. I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes talking about one of my great friends and one of the reasons, in my mind, the real reason I ultimately wound up at CBS Sports, where I've spent the better part of the last 31 years. His name was Dave Lane. Dave and I went into the business at the same time, 1963. We were the same age. He was 23, so was I. He was at the time the sports director of KCEN-TV in Temple. I was his counterpart at KTBC in Austin, the CBS affiliate. In 1965, Charlie Jones left Channel 8 WFAA-TV in Dallas, a really, really fine job. Charlie left to go to NBC. Dave and I both auditioned for the job. Neither of us got it. It went to a guy named Woody Van Dyke from Amarillo. 2 years later, Woody went to New Orleans. The job opened up again. Dave Lane and I both auditioned. He beat me out. He went to Dallas as the sports director. I had made a lateral move, and for 1 year, almost a year, I became a news anchor at WOAI-TV in San Antonio. Until late in that year, Dave Lane called me, and he said, "Jeannie and I, his wife, have just learned that we're expecting our first child. I'm going to get out of the business of on air, go into sales, and hope to become a manager. I'd like to recommend you for the job." And he did, and I'm convinced to this day that it was his recommendation that pushed me over the top and made me his successor at Channel 8. So we had that kind of a relationship. He went into sales. He later became general manager of a station in Beaumont, Texas. He then got promoted, became manager of a station in Tulsa, a sister station to Channel 8 in Dallas. And then things went pretty well for me. I began doing the 5, 6, and 10. I also began a 16-year association with the Dallas Cowboys. Started out as a pre- and post-game guy, then color guy, and when Calvin was playing, I became the play-by-play man of the Cowboys and their 119-station network. 2 years later, ABC called. We'd like to try you on college football. And so I began an 8-year relationship with ABC Sports. I did college football. I did a couple of golf tournaments, a few boxing matches. But to say that I had a memorable and stellar career at ABC Sports would be somewhat disingenuous. Here's an example. The 1976 Innsbruck Winter Olympics came, as well as Montreal that summer. I didn't make the roster. In 1980, I thought I had a shot at becoming part of the Olympic team at ABC in Lake Placid. Then I got a phone call and they said, listen, you didn't make the cut, but while we're in Lake Placid, you're going to substitute for Chris Schenkel and do the Professional Bowlers Tour. So when Al Michaels was asking all of you, do you believe in miracles? I was in Peoria, and I was stressing over whether Billy Whaley could make the 7-10 split in the 8th frame. So I wasn't shocked when my contract expired in January of 1982 to receive a phone call from Chuck Howard's office. And the conversation included the phrase, going in a different direction. Well, I was 42 years of age, and I thought maybe my aspiration of a network career had come to an end. This is where Dave Lane, my boss, who had become the general manager at Channel 8 in Dallas in the mid-'70s, got on his horse and rode in to save the day. CBS had acquired the rights to the college basketball tournament. They also had said, we are going to begin college football again in the fall. I made the proper inquiries. I thought maybe there's a sliver of hope. And then I received a CBS offer. It was for 6 college football games and 2 basketball games. That was it. Now, that's hardly enough to put spaghetti and meatballs on the table, much less an occasional steak. But I went to Dave and I said, can you see your way, any way clear to do this? And in those days, you just didn't travel from network to network in the same week. Well, we had a pretty good staff, and we dominated under the leadership of a man named Marty Haig. To give you an idea of the quality of our newsroom staff, one of our general assignment reporters was Scott Pelley. Another was Peter Van Zandt, who's still on the staff of 48 Hours. Paula Zahn got her first job out of the university at Channel 8. Lisa Gibbons, one of the original correspondents for Entertainment Tonight, was there. And for a tiny piece of time, 6 months maximum, we had a tall, somewhat tumultuous feature reporter named Bill O'Reilly. It was an interesting time. Well, David, I said, is there any way that I can accept this offer from CBS and still continue to work at Channel 8? He said, here's the deal. You resign as a staff employee, you become an independent contractor, you provide your own health benefits, we'll pay you when you work for us, and you won't get paid when you don't. Well, that relationship lasted for 18 months. I swallowed hard. I called Kevin O'Malley at CBS, and I said, if the deal is still there, I'm on. The 6 college football games became 10. The 2 college basketball games became 8. I was invited by Frank Cherkinian to become part of the CBS golf family, 5 events. That grew to 17. And it all kind of ended when they moved me into the NFL, and I became Terry Bradshaw's first partner. But none of it would have happened had David Lane not been willing to be a little flexible, to bend the rules, and allow me to appear Monday through Friday on Channel 8 in Dallas and pop up on the weekends on Channel 4 in Dallas. Sadly, we lost David at 53 years of age in 1993. I have never had a chance to publicly acknowledge his role in my career until tonight, so I thank him. Just a couple of words about my wife, Nancy. I was introduced to Nancy Miller on the evening of March 18th, 1980. I thought that night she had the greatest smile I have ever seen. I still feel that way. But I learned soon thereafter there was so much more. She had an open and winning personality that was filled with warmth and with wit. She never turned down someone who wanted to come into her life, and she was never judgmental. She's still not. She's also ridiculously funny. We've been married now for 34 years as of April 8th. I think this one might last. Just a quick other word about her. She had her own radio television career for 25 years, mostly in the Southwest, in Dallas and Houston and Shreveport and Atlanta. But for 1 year, those of you of a certain age will remember this marketing campaign. Lincoln, Mercury, and the Cougar. Well, Nancy traveled the country as a spokesperson for Lincoln Mercury, and she helped take care of that Cougar and survived. She's been married for 34 years to me and survived. A couple of quick thank yous, and I don't want to belabor it, but Sean, the intro was so wonderful. David Burson, thank you guys. Our SEC on CBS crew. I've worked with Gary for 10 years now. Tracy Wolfson was our sideline reporter for 10. Allie LaForce has been with us recently. And in the truck, always, Craig Silver, Steve Milton, who's here tonight, Bob Fishman, who is here tonight, who did the SEC before he went back to the NFL. Lance Barrow, coordinating producer of the NFL in golf, is also here tonight. And Mr. Raftery, my partner for 15 years doing the tournament. Well, Mark Wolf is the guy who called us the Sunshine Boys and marketed us as such. Raftery came up with onions on his own. I did get a chance to work 3 Olympics with Scott Hamilton, who remains a dear friend. A shout out to Bob Rosen, who's represented me for 30 years. And another shout out to Kevin O'Malley, who was the first exec at CBS who said, I think you can go a little farther with what you're trying to do. Sean also mentioned his dad. My idol, my hero was Jim McKay. I think he's the greatest storyteller we've ever had in this business, and I was lucky enough to work with him for 2 years in 1979 and 1980. We did the North American Soccer League together. Jim was the play-by-play, a fellow named Paul Gardner was the analyst, and I was the sideline reporter. So on a certain September Monday night, knowing that we were going to do the Soccer Bowl that coming Sunday between the New York Cosmos and the Washington Diplomats, Nancy and I were watching the Monday Night Football telecast with Meredith, Howard Cosell, and Frank Gifford. And in the third quarter, Cosell began to read the promo for the college football games that weekend. I can't do a Cosell, but it's something like this. All right, this weekend, college football on ABC Sports. In the South, you're going to see Georgia and Florida. In the Midwest, it's going to be Michigan State and Iowa. Down in Texas, you'll watch Texas and Baylor. And out west, it's Arizona State and UCLA. In little tiny letters at the very bottom, it had an asterisk and a note. Salisbury State at Hampden, Sydney. And Cosell went into a full Cosell. Now that's the game I want to see, by God. Salisbury State at Hampden, Sydney. I'm going to call Roone tomorrow and demand that I be assigned to that game, I think they deserve my presence for at least 3.5 hours. Oh, we laughed. And then the next morning, I got a phone call from the office in New York, and they said, on your way to the soccer bowl, we want you to drop into Hamden, Sydney, and do the telecast of Salisbury State. So I did, worked it with John Dockery. 20 minutes before we come on the air, there's a 3-story building down here on the right side. It's where the arena was and all the athletic offices. Top 2 windows on the 3rd floor, open, 2 guys here, 2 guys there. They unfurl 4 bed sheets that were sewn together, on which it said, Hamden, Sydney welcomes ABC Sports. Smaller letters. Where the hell is Howard Cosell? Little tiny letters. Who the hell is Verne Lundquist? Well, tonight, he is the most honored person in this room. I thank all of you. God love you.